So let's get cracking on with the fish soup. Cook off your mussels.
My version is speedy and simple.
Oldschool Runescape is home to many challenges, from grinding out skills and quests to filling your collection tab or killing increasingly harder bosses many times over. Some challenges set out restrictions, such as when you chunk or region lock yourself, or limit the use of specific items or skills. This game has been something that I return to every so often, and when I found myself with some time on my hands and the desire to try my hand at some video content creation, I found myself thinking of a new type of challenge. Now, I like cooking in real life, and the in-game skill has always been interesting to me, so a challenge that revolved around cooking sounded interesting. But I didn't just want to reach 99. Nor did I want something like a no banking challenge. No, I decided I wanted to try my hand at cooking every recipe in-game. And that's where Coral Casper was born, a new Iron Man account created with the purpose of cooking every one of the recipes in-game and to do so 100 times. I started out by making a list of all the recipes that I would want to make and found out quickly that there were some listed under the cooking skill that were in fact inedible. In the spirit of the challenge, I deemed these to be out of scope and that I would primarily focus on edible recipes alone. I also figured that brews, especially when factoring in mature brews, would only need to be created in batches of 8. Since the chance of hitting a mature brew would already result in a multitude of regular brews. But just creating every single recipe wasn't enough, since a lot of the items simply can be bought from stores. This is why I decided that farming and crafting ingredients were preferential over buying them. This means farming for all the potatoes, tomatoes, and that I would need to churn every bit of dairy and create every single pie dish by hand. It yielded a total of 135 recipes, divided over 7 categories. 68 of these recipes will feature in this first season RECHOPPED video and will be separated by category, from meat, fish and miscellaneous, to vegetables, dough, alcohol and finally gnome recipes. It consists of a recut of clips that I gathered over the first 14 episodes of Cooked, respliced into a different format to make for a different experience. The meat category consists of 24 recipes that require the use of hunter or combat skills to capture and kill a variety of creatures all over Gielinor. First up is cooked chicken, a level 1 recipe that many of us started out cooking with, since it's one of the easiest and most plentiful enemies out there in the early game. Cooked meat also requires level 1 cooking, but can be sourced from many different creatures. Beef from cows and raw bear, boar, rat and yak meat all turn into the singularly named cooked meat whenever they are cooked. Killing cows has been my preferred way of sourcing cooked meat, since they are plentiful and their hides prove an easy way to level up crafting in the early game. Cooked meat is also used in a variety of other recipes, with some of them allowing you to substitute it for chicken. While cooked rabbit is another level 1 recipe, it does require a little more effort than the previous two. While wild rabbits can be sourced through killing them in Isafdar, Miscellaneous and the Island of Souls, I have instead opted for the more convoluted way. After completing Eagle's Peak, players can catch ferrets that can be used to flush white rabbits out of their hole. The raw meat can then be cooked or roasted, as we will see later on. Roasting bird meat requires level 11 cooking and level 20 fire making, as roasting can only be done over an open fire. The meat can be sourced through hunting with bird snares or birdhouses and can then be skewered on iron spits before roasting. Roasting requires a little more finesse, as these recipes will only stop burning after reaching level 99 cooking, making the chance for burning pretty significant all around. Thankfully, you can reuse the iron spit after cooking, otherwise these types of recipes would have been a little more tedious than they already are. At level 12 cooking, we learn how to cook thin snails, one of the 3 types of snail meat that can be sourced in Mortmire Swamp by killing a variety of blemished snails. What is interesting is that these recipes are among the 21 recipes that have an increased success rate at the Lumbridge Kitchen range that becomes available after completing Cook's Assistant. The first double recipe entry for the Spider on Stick and Spider on Shaft recipes at level 16 cooking. Spider carcasses from jungle spiders, or as a drop from Arachnis, can be skewered on arrow shafts or specially crafted skewer sticks that are made by using a machete on the thatching spar from the Taibo one-eye cleanup minigame. There's not much that sets these two recipes apart from the fact that you will get your skewer stick back after eating a spider on stick, but not your arrow shaft when eating a spider on shaft. At level 16 cooking, you learn how to skewer raw rabbit meat in roasted instead of cooking. Through this recipe, you learn how to utilize more of the healing properties of the meat, since it will heal 7 hit points and not the 5 hit points of its cooked counterpart. There is only one type of snail that can drop a lean snail for this level 17 cooking recipe. The bark blemish snail is the only type of snail of which there is only one variant, and its round shell can be used to fashion into headgear that protects the wearer from snail attacks. You learn how to cook giant crab meat during the Recipe for Disaster subquest to free Pirate Pete, and requires 21 cooking. These strips of meat offer up 5 bites that each heal you for 2 hit points. You can also ground up the raw crab meat as an ingredient for fish cakes, which we will visit in another category of food. Another entry for the roasted meats recipes. Raw beast meat can be sourced from cabbits that are tracked and caught via the noose wand hunting method. The common, polar and razorback cabbit, as well as the velvet weasel and desert devil, all drop this meat that can then be skewered and roasted with 21 cooking and 20 fire making. What is interesting about all snail meats is that they heal for a range of hit points. Thin snails heal 5 to 7 hit points, lean snails 5 to 8, and these fat snails that can be cooked with level 22 cooking heal from 7 to 9 hit points. I don't know whether the range is just a product of luck and that you can heal either one of these values at any given point, or whether there are hit points level thresholds that you need to hit before the snails heal the upper end of the range. Cooking wild cabbits can be achieved from level 23 cooking and onwards. The wild cabbits that you source this meat from are caught via the Deadfall traps at level 23 hunter in the Piscatoris hunter area or the Auburnville hunter area. What I think is interesting is that these traps can be smoked or have bait added to it, but the added benefits are so small that I don't know of anyone that bothers with that. Maybe it would be interesting if these mechanics also benefited you whilst doing hunter rumors? The deceptively named Cook Chompy is roasted rather than cooked. After completion of the big Chompy bird hunting quest, you can bait Chompies to appear and shoot them down with your ogre bow and arrows. I find that the best spot to hunt for Chompy birds is at the Chompy Marsh, even though I always thought that you can only catch them in Veldub Hills near Rance when I started out. Similarly to the other roasted meat recipes, cooking Chompy birds also requires level 20 fire making and an added 30 cooking on top. Hunting spined Larupias through pitfall trapping requires level 31 hunter, and wearing the full set of Larupia hunter gear allows you to mitigate some of the damage that they can do after being provoked. Pitfall trapping is particularly tedious, but the meat that you can cook at level 31 cooking has interesting properties. Hunter meats heal over time, with the Labrupia meat healing an initial 6 hit points, with 5 added on top after a delay of 7 ticks, making for a total of 11 hit points. Aside from wild cabbits, the barb-tailed cabbit is the only other deadfall trap cabbit that drops out raw meat. Level 33 hunter and 32 cooking are required to subsequently catch and cook the meat. Being one of the hunter meats, barb-tailed cabbits heal for 7 hit points initially and 5 more on its secondary heal, which makes its total healing comparable to a lobster. Only after completing 25 hunter rumors and level 41 hunter and cooking are you able to catch and cook grog meat. These beasts are native to the Karamja hunter area and can be teased similarly to the spined Larupias to their demise. Being a hunter meat, cooked grog is similar in healing to a swordfish, but splits it up between an initial heal of 8 and a secondary heal of 6. Cooking Kjat also requires the completion of 25 hunter rumors, but also requires level 51 hunter and cooking to catch and cook its meat. We find these saber-toothed beasts all the way up north in the Relica hunter area, and their healing, 9 initially and 8 subsequently, is similar to that of a monkfish. This marks the end of the meat segment. In season 1 of Cooked, I managed to complete 18 out of 24 of these recipes. We fought 900 creatures and hunted for 900 more, skewered 600 meats and roasted 400 of these over an open fire. We went underwater to frigid lands and into the deep Karamjan wilds. Next up on the chopping block is the fishing category, perhaps one of the more chill categories that is out there. Fishing is another category consisting of 24 recipes. With the launch of sailing, there's technically a couple more recipes that fall under this category, but for convenience sake they are included in a separate category that will feature in season 2 of Cooked. First recipe is one which can be cooked with just level 1 cooking, the humble shrimp, which when cooked heals a total of 3 hit points. Funnily enough, whilst requiring a higher fishing level to fish up, anchovies heal only for 1 hit point whenever they are caught and cooked, and also only require level 1 cooking. Fished out of the same spot of shrimps, their main appeal is as an ingredient for making anchovy pizza. Baiting a net/bait fishing spot with some fishing bait will yield some raw sardines and raw herring with 5 and 10 fishing. Sardines can be cooked already at level 1 cooking, healing for 4 hit points when properly cooked, whilst raw herring requires level 5 cooking and its finished product will restore 5 hit points. Mackerel and cod can be caught with a big net alongside a load of other trash with level 16 and 23 fishing. Mackerel requires level 10 cooking and heals for 6 hit points, whilst cod requires level 18 cooking and heals for 7 hit points. The raw variant will make its return when we look at fish cakes, and cooked cod is one of the ingredients in making fish pie. Big net fishing is one of the more cumbersome fishing activities due to the amount of things that you can catch, making it one of the more sluggish gathering methods for this challenge. From one of the most sluggish fishing methods to one of the quickest. Fly fishing is a speedy process in which we can catch our raw trout and raw salmon with just level 20 and level 30 fishing. They can be cooked earlier on. With just level 15 and 25 cooking, you can make yourself some trout and salmon, which are ingredients for fish pie and admiral pie. Salmon is also the highest level fish that still benefits from the improved cooking success rate from the Lumbridge range. Rivers can also be bait fished for raw pike with level 25 fishing. These can be cooked with level 20 cooking, and apart from their use in beginner clue scrolls as a task from Charlie the Tramp, I don't see these having too much use, given that they heal about the same as the far more easily caught trout. Deep down in the swamp caves of Lumbridge, you can cast your fishing rod and catch raw slimy eel with level 28 fishing and raw cave eel with 38 fishing. These are popular ingredients in Dogishun cooking, as they are made into eel sushi. Since we still lack the goblin cooking technology, our only option is to cook them, with respectively 28 and 38 cooking required. What is interesting is that their slimy eels can also be caught in Mortmire Swamp, but catching them there yields less experience. Tuna and swordfish are two staples of both fishing and cooking. Throwing out your harpoon at level 35 and 50 fishing at a cage/harpoon spot will allow you to catch these raw fish. Cooking these still requires a lower level, with 30 cooking required for tuna and 45 cooking for swordfish. The latter is the highest healing single serving food in free-to-play worlds, as it heals for 14 hit points when eaten. Rainbow fish are a relatively unique type of fish that you can catch through casting out your lure at any fly fishing spot when using stripy feathers instead of normal ones. These feathers can be harvested through hunting tropical wagtails at level 19 hunter with bird snares. Catching these fish is particularly slow, especially in comparison to the other fly fishing counterparts. They can be cooked at level 35 cooking and heal for 11 hit points when eaten. But why you would want to bother? I honestly don't know. Who hasn't caught their fair share of lobsters before? These popular crustaceans can be caught at level 40 fishing and also require the same level of cooking in order to cook them. They are the lowest level food on which the cooking gauntlets, a potential reward from the family crest quest, work on, lowering the chance that you burn them by a fair bit. Once cooked, they heal for 12 hit points, and since they don't share a gathering spot with any other fish, they are a pretty reliable source of farming, fishing and cooking experience, which you will certainly visit quite often during this challenge. We visited big net fishing before, but once you hit level 46 fishing, raw bass can also land up in your nets whilst you're casting them out. A pretty unreliable food to farm, since the chance of receiving them is pretty low. With level 43 cooking, you can cook these big fish and fully utilize their 13 hit points of healing whenever you are in need. And with 16 out of 24 recipes completed, we've landed at the end of the fish segment. In this first season, we discarded hundreds of leather gloves and boots as a bycatch from big net fishing, slaughtered birds for their hundreds of feathers, and used fishing bait to no end. Next season, we'll have us use more and more of our fishing prowess on deck of our ship and in the overworld as we tackle the last batch of recipes. Next category is the miscellaneous one, with a gathering of recipes that don't quite fit in any other major category whatsoever. Dairy, tea, stews and kebab, the miscellaneous category has a little bit for everyone. With only 9 recipes, this is also by far the smallest category in this challenge. We first mark off the dairy products, starting with 100 pots of cream. At level 21 cooking, you can start making these from buckets of milk at a churn, taking 6 seconds per pot of cream to finish. The dairy products are all pretty time consuming, but since it's an ingredient that can be sourced, I have put in the legwork to get it done. You can turn the same bucket of milk or a pot of cream into a pat of butter at level 38 cooking, requiring you to spend around 12 seconds churning away. Butter is also used for all of the topped potato recipes, as making a potato with butter is the first step towards all of the other variations. Cheese is used in all pizza recipes as well as most bata recipes. This versatile ingredient can be made with milk, cream or butter, and you will spend around 16 seconds at the churn from level 48 and onwards to create this finished product. With the making of stew also comes the first time we put our crafting skill to good use. As part of this challenge, all pottery items will be made by hand to ensure the top of the line quality to hold the fresh ingredients. Stew can be made at level 25 cooking and can be made with either cooked meat or cooked chicken, depending on your tastes. Regardless of what you pick, it will always heal 11 hit points whenever eaten. There are many different types of tea in Gielinor, but nettle tea is one of those that can be made by hand. Each piece of soft clay turns into 4 cups, an interesting mechanic that I wish was repeated on molten glass, for example. Please make sure to always wear gloves when you go out for nettle picking. Stronger warriors have suffered their sting before. Nettle teas can be made from level 20 cooking onwards and restore 3 hit points and 5% run energy whenever consumed. There is no added benefit to adding milk to your nettle tea, but since customer is king, we must try to prepare tea in whatever way they see fit. Another category completed, one where we spent some time churning as well as turning the pottery wheel, where we made comfort in a cup and in a bowl, and as such completed 6 out of the 9 available recipes in this category. Next season will see us with a small increase ever since the inclusion of Damiana tea, and we will of course dabble in the making of kebabs. Next category is one for which yet another skill is needed. We turn to farming in order to complete recipes from the vegetable category. The vegetable category is host to 16 recipes, of which many are related to potatoes or their toppings. Since the toppings and topping ingredients are listed as separate entries in the cooking guide, we have included these as separate recipes to complete. Only the best ingredients will do. This is why we shall train ourselves in the way of farming, gathering seeds and harvesting potatoes, and as such working towards the first recipe for this category, the humble baked potato, which can be cooked at level 7 cooking. And as such we start our journey into topping these off with a rich selection of ingredients. We will return quite often to the clay mines in order to gather up enough ingredients to craft a series of artisan bowls. When making spicy sauce at level 9 cooking, it is important to take the right kind of spice with you as you sprinkle them over your chopped garlic. Only gnome spice will ensure that you get that biting spice that this topping is known for. Normal spice, or the ones from Evil Dave, simply won't do the trick. And while I won't advise anyone to eat the spicy sauce straight out of the bowl, you will still heal 2 hit points when you consume it. And yes, in order to collect enough garlic for this recipe, we will be using the cupboard in Morgan's house in Draenor. The unlimited spawn there is simply the most reliable way to gather up enough to make these recipes. We quickly repeat some of the steps from making spicy sauce for the chili con carne recipe. At level 11 cooking, you can combine the recipe for spicy sauce with some cooked meat or even some minced meat if you'd like. Minced meat in itself is a strange little recipe that isn't quite a recipe in and of itself, since it's primarily created as bait for carnivorous or black chinchompas. Another one of these hunter baits that will rarely see play, since they don't offer up enough benefit in comparison to their cost and space that they take up. More bowls are made before we gather up our eggs and scramble them. Level 13 cooking is required for this recipe, of which all ingredients are also available in a well-stocked player-owned home kitchen. I personally find that the spot near the Lumbridge windmill is pretty good for gathering up eggs. Speaking of eggs, did you know that chickens in game will lay an egg whenever you poison or envenom them, instead of taking the damage? Whenever you level 10 levels past the requirement for scrambled eggs at 23 cooking, you suddenly figure out how to mash up a tomato in the mixture to create a new recipe. The egg and tomato in itself heals for 8 hit points, and I do wonder why we take so long to figure this one out. Sweet corn. Finally a recipe that is not readily made available as a topping, but is also a standalone vegetable recipe. Cooking sweet corn becomes available at level 28 cooking, and as you can see, I have only harvested the most pristine sweet corns in all of Gielinor. The big step towards making topped potatoes is adding butter to a regular old potato. These potatoes can be made at level 39 cooking and will heal 14 hit points on their own. You just have to keep churning that butter to make them. Finally, we go through all the motions to make a chili potato. We farm and bake a potato, churn the butter and use it to top the potato off. Then we use a bowl for our spicy sauce that we turn into chili by adding cooked meat to it. Slap these two together and we've got a perfect finished product. Thankfully we are left with the bowl at the end, otherwise the grind to make these would have been a little more maddening. One step towards mushroom potatoes, and as a topping ingredient a recipe of its own, we will fry up some onions. Requiring 42 cooking but only healing for 5 hit points when consumed. These probably aren't going to be your emergency food, but merely a stepping stone towards something greater. For me, they're just another recipe that needs to be made in order to show mastery over this skill. Another category down, potatoes, bowls and plenty of farming. We haven't quite topped this category off with just 9 out of 16 recipes completed. But we will be spending a lot more time plowing away at the potato fields in Season 2. Next up is a category that in itself requires plenty of work. The dough category is upon us. The dough section consists of 20 recipes for breads, cakes, pies and pizzas. There's a lot of gathering and grinding that needs to be done for this category to get finished. And to accommodate for the heaps of flour that we will gather, we require a nice stack of pots. Baking bread is one of those first things that you learn in Tutorial Island and are available to you from level 1. They restore 5 hit points and therefore are genuinely good early game food if you want to go out of your way to bake it. Or steal it off some stall in some larger city of course. But I personally think that makes for an inferior product, so I'm rolling up my sleeves and getting to kneading. While pita bread requires 58 cooking, they technically stop burning at level 37 on ranges. Therefore, it's technically impossible to burn these breads and you can safely bake them for making ukthanki kebabs. Alongside cooked crab meat, you also learn how to make fish cakes during the Pirate Pete portion of Recipe for Disaster. This multi-step process involves making breadcrumbs from our homemade bread by using a knife on them, grounding up cod, kelp and giant crab meat and whacking these together in order to make a raw fish cake that we can then cook with level 31 cooking. These cooked fish cakes aren't only useful in helping out Pirate Pete from his sticky situation with the Culinaromancer, but also heal for 11 hit points when eaten. Efficient? Probably not, but it is another addition to our list, and I must say that it feels damn nice having 100 of these occupying a space in my bank. Of course we make our pie shells in-house, and cooking red berry pies isn't just only for Imkando dwarfs. At level 10 we make these 2-bite dishes from a pie shell and freshly picked red berry from one of our own cultivated bushes. Cooked meat makes its return when we look at making meat pies. One of the few shortcuts that we make during the dough making process is using the infinite spawn of flour at the Sinclair mansion. After we helped out solve their murder mystery, of course. Their flour is pretty high quality, and since we can't even grow our own grain, it is the best option available. Since our grind for 100 Golofanova fruit tops has us steal many fruits from the fruit stall in Hosidius, it is only fair that we use the cooking apples to make some good apple pie for this challenge. Level 30 cooking is required to make these, and each bite will heal you for 7 hit points and make you feel like you're carefree and young again. As a true test to our farming skill, the garden pie has us go out and gather 100 of each tomato, onion and cabbage before we make these pies. These pies can be made at 34 cooking, and on top of the healing, they are also the first type of pie to boost the skill. In this case, you will be able to boost your farming by 3 levels for a little while. And yes, for the best pizza Gielinor has to offer, you can still stop by at Little Casper's en route to Lumbridge. What is great about pizzas is that they are relatively easily expanded upon with additional toppings. Sadly, each pizza requires both 100 tomatoes and 100 cheese, which does turn this into a relative grind in the end. Lots of flour, many pie dishes and some questionable ingredient origins later, and we have finished 8 out of the 20 recipes available in this category. Season 2 will increase the grind, as pies especially will be cause for lots of work, whenever we look for example at the botanical, mushroom or even the wild and summer pie. Our next category to visit is the alcohol category. So let's make some friends with pirates and drunken dwarfs, shall we? The alcohol category features 22 recipes, among which there are 2 wine and 20 types of fermented brews made from brewing vats. As I explained in the beginning of this video, the goal is to make one batch of both a normal and mature brew, because I expect these to take plenty of time on their own and there's not really a need for 100 of these too. On top of that, we can craft many of these beers into their own beer barrel in a player-owned home, from which we can supply many glasses. We will of course be making our own glassware from scratch again, as such is the case in this first recipe for the category. Using some of the cooking apples we stole from the fruit stall in Hosidius to turn into mush and ferment for a while before we pick up the 8 cider that can be made from level 14 onwards, that heal 1 hit point, drain attack and strength by 2 and also boost farming by 1. Dwarven stouts require level 19 cooking, some barley malt and hammerstone hops. These also restore 1 hit point, drain attack, strength and defense, and boost mining and smithing by 1. Asgardian Ale is one of those beverages which boosts combat stats. In this case, it temporarily boosts strength by 2 whilst draining attack. Still healing for 1 hit point and made with 24 cooking. These Asgardian Ales can be turned into Asgardian Ales at any point after the Dwarf subquest for Recipe for Disaster, rendering them unusable but pretty shiny. Greenman's Ale is used for boosting herb lore, while at a stark detriment to attack, strength and defense. These ales can be created at level 29 cooking and don't use any hops like the other brews, but rather Harlander herbs. They are also used in the prerequisite quest for Recipe for Disaster and are part of the food magic that released the Culinary into the world again. The Wizard Mind Bomb is no stranger to anyone who has completed Dragon Slayer 1, but this brew packs a mighty punch that can boost your magic by 2 or even 3 whenever your magic level is above 50. They are created from level 34 cooking onward and feature Yanilian hops, named after the town that also houses the Magic Guild. What is interesting about the Dragon Bitter is that its effect seems to be similar to that of an Asgardian ale. It also drains attack at the benefit of 2 boosted strength levels, but requires 39 cooking to make. I personally think that it comes down to taste. If you're a fan of the more bitter stuff, this probably is totally your jam. Out of brewing territory for now, we move on to the vineyards of Hosidius to plant and retrieve the grapes that will be fashioned into our jugs of wine. These can be cooked at level 35 and offer up some pretty quick experience, but also provide great early game healing as it heals for 11 hit points at just the detriment of 2 attack levels, and is cheap to boot whilst still being rather heavy. Tithe farm is required to farm up the grape seeds, and we will later have to revisit this minigame in order to be able to craft Zamorakian grapes too. Intoxicated by alcoholic fumes and tired after the long waits before our brews are finished, we end this category in Season 1 with 7 out of the 22 available recipes completed. Season 2 will have us hunt for our mature brews, of which we still haven't had one, in order to finish up this category altogether. Last category is upon us. Let us take a look at the Gnome's recipes that we have thus far completed. There are 20 total recipes in the Gnome category, which can be divided into a couple of sections in of itself. We have the crispies that we are seeing footage of now, then we have 5 types of batas, 4 types of gnome balls, and lastly 7 different cocktails to enjoy. These recipes are the true test for all aspiring cooks out there, requiring their own specific ingredients, molds, multiple step recipes and tiresome grinds. We start off at the base requirement of level 10 for the toad crunchies, that feature half-baked crunchies that are prepared with toad legs and gnome spice and finished off with equa leaf to make the final product, which heals for a total of 8 hit points and that can be used in the Gnome Restaurant minigame. The only real farming for this particular recipe is in picking up the toad legs from the swamp outside of the Grand Tree and buying all of the other ingredients from Hudo, who operates Grand Tree Groceries. Spicy crunchies can be made with 12 cooking and heal for 7 hit points. The half-baked crunchy is prepared with 2 equa leaves and gnome spice and topped off with some extra gnome spice as a finisher. We don't know what herbs and spices go into the gnome spice mix, but it must pack a pretty punch. This secret mix was thought of by Aluft Jane, the famous tree gnome chef. At level 14 cooking, you can make these swamp crunchies that heal for 8 hit points. Prepare a half-baked crunchy with 2 kingworms, sourced from the Gnome Village swamp, 1 equa leaf and some gnome spice. Whenever cooked, finish the crunchy with some additional gnome spice for the finished product. Crunchies were invented by Pixabay, a gnome chef from the late 4th age who created them by accident, but soon realized that he was sitting on a smash hit. Each choc chip crunchy requires 3 chocolate bars, which is why we head out to Castory in Varlamore to source a whole load of them. Through an intricate route through the town, we are able to pick up 2 and return right back at the start where the first one will respawn. At level 16 cooking, you are able to make these crunchies, preparing the half-baked crunchy with 2 whole bars of chocolate and some gnome spice, and finishing up the product with some light chocolate dusting. We crunched our way through the initial 4 recipes out of the 20 that are available in this category. Gnome cooking is not for the weak, which is why Season 2 will test us in many ways before we can cook up the rest of these gnomish recipes. 68 out of 135 available recipes completed meant that we were halfway through at the end of Season 1. Season 2 will bring a whole new category and 11 more recipes to complete, so we've got a bit to go before hitting the halfway mark again. This video was supposed to go out so much earlier than it has. At one point, I was beginning to wonder if I was ever going to finish it. I hope you have enjoyed this rechopped version of the first half of my silly little Oldschool Runescape challenge. And while it is different than what Cook normally offers, I hope it remains a pretty digestible format. As always, feel free to send my feedback. This whole series started out as an excuse to try my hand at making videos and learning editing skills along the way. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in Season 2 of Cooked, where we will sail the high seas in search of more recipes to complete. For now, thank you and peace.